Hey, Reigniting Redemption. Heavy week, for sure. It never seems to end, does it? They say that large-scale conflicts, plagues, accelerating inflation, negative interest rates, and threatening climate changes are events that typically happens every 50 to 100 years, at most. Well, we seem to be living in a compressed version of history where we get to taste them all, almost at the same time. As my friend Justin says, what's next? I'm betting on aliens. Right as we were preparing to mentally get back into a more post-pandemic posture, Russia attacks Ukraine. And we all have to try to figure out what this means for them, for Europe, and for the globe. I did get some comments last week around my non-comment on Ukraine, and I felt it necessary to explain what I meant. Obviously, what is happening is unacceptable, terrible, frightening, and could be the beginning of something really catastrophic. My comment was not rooted in apathy or lack of care. It was instead my attempt at acknowledging I didn't feel adequately informed enough to provide substantive commentary. In fact, I care deeply. While I feel better informed now, I still feel at a loss. I don't know what to do other than to support organizations, people, and efforts to trying to save Ukrainian lives and protest against this terrible crime. In the links below, I've posted a few great articles and interviews that I found helpful as I myself try to understand the many nuances of both possibilities and problems ahead. But this week, maybe on purpose, I'm taking a break from the outer world and getting back to our inner world. And by that I mean inside of our minds and our attitudes. That's where I feel like most belong, and where I also feel we can find most answers to the questions we ask. I started writing this newsletter, as you know, because I am concerned about how far our public discourse has broken down, even between people that used to love each other. I see it in my professional life. I see it firsthand in meetings. People are very trigger happy, and they often travel from agreement to disagreement in an instant. It seems to me that we have lost the space between love and hate. They're only separated by a hair, it seems. We can disagree more agreeably, can't we? And we can certainly stop confusing the message with the messenger. It's not the same thing. The worst version is, of course, what we now call cancel culture. When entire careers and livelihoods get erased, destroyed, and humiliated, oftentimes because of one tweet, one word, or one idea that some people feel injured by. And let me just state something important. It happens from both sides. The far left and the far right are both using cancel tactics as very effective community amplifiers. The lower someone else sinks, the higher we feel, seems to be the essence of this emotional logic. And what's more is that we are not making these ideas disappear. We're just temporarily obscuring them. We are not offering a chance for meaningful transformation or healing. Obviously, social media, with its reach, immediacy, and penetrating power, is the most significant contributor to the demise of our conversational culture. There are two particular problems I want to highlight. The first is fear. Fear of being misunderstood, particularly. More and more people are afraid to say what they think. I feel that myself. More often these days, I don't say what I think or feel just because of concerns that someone will take what I said out of context. And it might end up hurting me or the people or organizations I'm trying to help. I know many of you feel the same way. The damage here is that we don't get to hear from people even with a slightly differing point of view. This leads us to believe we are more justified in our own views than we actually are. This is of course amplified by so many people currently living inside echo chambers where they only listen to what they want to hear. It's so easy these days to walk through life unchallenged, and how easy it is to cherry pick. And it's not helpful. It's like wanting to go from point A to point B, and you remove all the road signs and the GPS equipment. You might think you're heading in the right direction, but without corrective feedback, you will most often get very lost. The second problem, in the wake of this fear, people stop taking risks. We play it safe. That way, we will never, ever find the new answers to the problems we all want to solve. Trust is an essential lubricant for a society to continue its march towards progress. Without it, things get literally stuck. People remain still, waiting for the other to make a mistake. It becomes a game of gotcha. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? This brings me to redemption. Somehow we've created a toxic mix of two sinister cultural traits. The first is intolerance for disagreement, and the second is intolerance for recovery. We simply have to reignite redemption. Redemption might take many to the realm of religion, like salvation from sin. It's certainly one of these words that perhaps is used more often in religious context, mainly because someone, often a holy one, was once the ultimate arbiter of who was to be redeemed and who was to be condemned. But redemption comes from Latin, and one of its meanings is releasing. In other words, releasing ourselves from our mistakes. Without redemption, we are prisoners of our past. And if you prefer, there are many related words that would work as well. Recover, reestablish, make amends, reparation, atonement, restitution, compensation. I can go on and on. And actually, when searching for synonyms, I was actually encouraged by how many words there are to describe the phenomenon of redemption. That's hopeful. Many of you are fellow parents. We have watched our kids' journey from birth to adulthood, reaching many milestones of achievement along the way. First comes eating, walking, and talking, then socializing, sporting, dating, graduating, and for some of us now, even marrying and bearing children of their own. But very few parents cancel their children because of mistakes they made. We all might deal with corrective nudging differently. Some use wine, some use vinegar, and some use both. But there's never any doubt that we forget quickly, we forgive deeply, and we can't wait to see how the next chapter unfolds in their lives. And always with the most passionate hopes for good health, strong love, and happy outcomes. Our love must be stronger than our hate. This should also include people we don't know and people we don't agree with. We cannot and should not let disagreements infect and contaminate our capacity for love and for wanting the best for others. We have arrived at a place in our culture where our desire to win an argument or fight for a particular outcome has made us lose both our connection to and care for the bigger picture. Means keep triumphing over ends, and very reasonable people promote very unreasonable positions in a desire to get what they want. Gandhi supposedly said that an eye for an eye will leave the whole world blind. And sadly, I think we're getting fairly close. A more redemptive culture is at least part of the answer. Assuming good intentions in others is a good start. And allowing the necessary room for people to reflect, improve, reposition, and adjust is critical if we are to move forward towards the place where we all want to go. Below, I'm linking to a great post on redemption that inspired me to reflect deeper on a word I rarely use, But like our culture, it's a lot less about words and a lot more about heart. In that article, Ariana Huffington says this: because growth cannot happen without the necessary ingredients of redemption, forgiveness, and self-forgiveness. If we are not allowed to learn from our mistakes, atone for them, become better people, then we can grow neither individually nor collectively. And after all, the great documents we live by assume a progression, whether it is in the never-ending journey toward a more perfect union, or Martin Luther King's arc of the moral universe bending towards justice, and even our Constitution have amendments. But true change at the systemic level has to be accompanied by change at the personal level. As Alexander Solzhenitsyn put it, the line separating good and evil passes not through states, nor between classes, nor between political parties either, but right through every human heart. End of quote. This all brings me back to Ukraine. Let us hope that this awful war is a wake-up call that we might all need. A wake-up call that helps us realize that the seemingly intense fights within our own democracies are small and trivial compared to the larger wars beyond us. In that way, one can hope that we have found the enemy, and it is not us. Democracy and liberal economies are always messy. The past few years have certainly felt that way. But now we must remember and reinforce what makes them better than the alternatives. I have at least been somewhat moved and encouraged by how quickly the rest of the world, most of them, came together in strong support for Ukraine. More is needed for sure and is coming. But it was a long time since so many nations so quickly agreed on anything. The few links this week are the Ariana Huffington article on redemption. Yuval Harari wrote a great article in The Guardian on Ukraine and also gave a terrific TED interview that I highly recommend you watch. And David Brooks' latest column is really helpful and hopeful too. And then lastly, Bill Maher's New Rules segment from last week around more grace in our relationships with our opponents. I found it inspiring and truly relevant, where he says we need hugs, not smugs. So here is to practicing more redemption. Let's throw fewer darts and more hearts. They do say, kill them with kindness. And I'd say, let's try that more often. And let's all do what we can to support our Ukrainian friends. Have a good week, and let's hope for a good outcome.